I apologize. Um, I clicked the tab, and like I said, it's been instead of going back to the tab, it's killing it. So I apologize for that. I tried to be as careful as I could. So I'm going to have to be careful with this computer, what I'm getting and not. Okay, sorry about that. I'll wait a minute, let people come on. All right, so we're talking Georgia, Tennessee, and again, I apologize. I won't leave this thing until I can figure out why I'm getting blown up on the other one. So I like Georgia minus the 2 as we were talking. That's the free pick. I just find that you play defense in the big games. I don't think Tennessee can stop Georgia, but I think Georgia can pressure Tennessee. They beat them, so it's in the heads of Tennessee. They beat Alabama at home, and it took all they could to beat them 52-49. This game's at Georgia, which is going to be critical also for them to, that definitely makes a difference where the game's at. Georgia will probably wear their colors. I think it's an afternoon game. But I like Georgia. I think they win the game. I think they're upset. They're not number one. I don't think Tennessee, again, you play defense over offense. And as I just stated, Georgia gives up 10 a game. Their defense is there. They have the system. They know how to put pressure on the quarterback. And I just don't see Tennessee doing the same to Georgia. So when Georgia has the ball, they're gonna milk the clock and move down and score. They got that power game, the tight end. I don't see how Tennessee can stop them. Can you stop Tennessee? If you put pressure on the quarterback, you shut them right down because they don't really run. And, is Alabama's defense all that? And it was at Tennessee. So I just think Georgia. Now, it's interesting that Tennessee's the number one team, and yet they're an 8.5-point dog. How can they be the number one team and an 8.5-point dog? If you're number one, you're the best team. So that makes Georgia the best team. And Georgia's pissed off about that also. So I like Georgia. Free pick. All right, let's get back to the game. So tonight, Duke, 10.5, 48.5. BC's quarterback looks like he's questionable or doubtful. So I like Duke here. They're a pretty good team. They're pretty explosive. And I look for them to come on. So I think Duke's I think Duke's a good play here. They showed good against North Carolina and Miami, and I think they have the offense to really. They're a B team, so they're really not a bad team. Duke. BC I have as the Z team, so it's really a bet against the Z team with a good offense. That's basically it. UConn and Mass, UConn 15.5, 40. Mass is terrible. I don't know if UConn can beat anybody by 15.5. Then can you go over in a game with the Z offense? Probably not. So I look. I don't know. I'm going to watch this game, but I'm going to let it go. Washington 4.5, 54.5 against Oregon State, and this is where you try to decide. Do I take Washington or do I go over under or Oregon? Do I play the team or the over under? And this is where you really get, you really get the point of it. After dueling around, I don't mind Oregon State's backup quarterback. They scored 42 on Colorado or somebody last week, so okay. So what do you do with it? Do I trust Washington? Now, Washington scores a lot. Oregon State, I don't know. They have a good defense. Remember, they held out USC 17-13. So, but they haven't really held other teams that low. They did hold Washington. So they have a pretty good defense. Washington scores 40 points a game. So this really becomes what do you like here? Do you want to go Washington? You want to go Oregon State? On the road, I'm not going to go Oregon State. And I don't know if I can trust Washington. But when I look at the over-under of 54, and all I got to do is go over 48 with the team that's going to score, they're going to score on Oregon State. As good as their defense was against SC, I just think Washington will score. So I'm going to go over 48.5 versus maybe taking Washington to win, because if the defense plays, if Oregon State shows up, they could win the game. However, 48.5 with Washington, and Oregon State's been scoring. So if they can score, like I said, they scored 28 on Washington State, which is very impressive, and then 40-something last week. So the backup quarterback isn't hurting me. I think all I need is 48 is 28-20. I think I get there. So I think over is the best play here. Army and the Air Force at home, lane 7.5. This is an interesting theory how I arrived at the play. They know each other's defense. Both teams are running teams. I looked at the stats. They both get 300 yards running and not a lot passing. I like Arizona's Air Force's quarterback, Daniels. He's okay. Army, they're doing okay. They're having a kind of an off year. But when I looked at the Air Force Navy game, was 10-7. And it's the same thing here. Army knows Air Force's offense, and Air Force knows Army's offense. And I looked at the history. The last 5 years in every game was like in the 20s. So just for you, Nick, I did add this play in our sheet. So I like the game. It's enough at 40 to go under 46. I think we can get under 46 there. I think that should be good, because I don't see – they both want to run the ball. So that stops the pick sixes and the things, and it runs the clock. So I think this should be one of these Army-Navy under games, and that's what I look at. And with the quarterback injured on Navy, that'll really be an under game, Army-Navy. So this is similar offenses, defenses knowing the offense, and should stay under. North Carolina, Virginia, 7.5, 60. I don't know why it went up to 60. I think this is the case. I think North Carolina just flat out beats Virginia. Their quarterback's questionable, Virginia, with the leg. So even if he plays, he's really, 50%, 75%? North Carolina, I like them. They got a good defense. They beat Duke. They beat Miami. This is not a bad team. All they got to do is win by one. I like North Carolina to win by one here. Kentucky, Missouri, Kentucky 1.5, over under 40.5, which has been dropping. I guess all I can say on this one is you got 200 teams. 40.5 is a little bit low, but okay. I think you got to play the game under. I think when I look at Kentucky and Missouri, I don't know. I can find a winner there. Then maybe I take Missouri in 7.5. I do like Kentucky. They did win at Florida, but they were the dog there. So I don't like Kentucky as much as the favorite. Missouri, again, it's really two strong under teams. So I think the most obvious is play under on the game. Minnesota, Nebraska, as I said, the quarterback's playing and the running back for Minnesota. They were nicked up a few weeks ago. So Abraham's been playing the last few games. Nebraska's just in trouble. They got kind of a weak defense, as Georgia Southern showed, and they are an over team, but I don't think against a team like Minnesota they're going to score a lot of points. Minnesota's laying 15.5 is a bit much. I do like Minnesota, but at Nebraska, I'm not going to lay 9.5 with a running type of team. The over-under of 44. Again, this game I like under. Just because I think Minnesota controls the game with their running attack and their defense, which is really good. Nebraska really doesn't. This game could possibly get over because Nebraska might score on Minnesota. But otherwise, I kind of like the game under. There's a lot of games that what's happened now is we've defined the teams. We have enough ammo to define the team, right? So we know what Minnesota is. We know what Nebraska is. We can go all down the level. Oh, now Kansas is strong offense. And so we have a lot more plays because we know the teams. When we look at the games, we go, shit, that's a ball. That's a play. Oh, and we got them in every conference. So because of all the conferences and all the games, I mean, I got 2.5. I got a whole sheet here, and I got this. So I got all these games that you can find games that, again, it's nothing is pre-planned. I might not have a lock, but when I see a strong play, I'm locking it. Utah, Arizona would be a lock if Rising and the boys were playing, but I don't know, so I can't lock it. I can't play it. If we find out, I think it's a night game. If we find out, tomorrow morning at 9:00 when I'm doing the college show, and we find out that, oh, he's playing, well, then we can make the bet. But until then, we can't, because we can't bet on him to play and then he doesn't play. So where am I? Ohio State, Northwestern. Ohio State laying 39, I think, and over under 55.5. So this is one of those games where you got to look at what you think the score is going to be. So Ohio State probably will get their 45, 50, what they average. And I'm not going to click off to go see it because I might not come back, and then that's not good. I don't know why. I'm just clicking on the tab to say come back, but I can't figure it out. Anyway, so the question is, what's Northwestern going to do? Helsinki is questionable. I don't think he played last week. But Ohio State doesn't have that super strong defense. They don't have the 8-point defense Illinois does or the 10 that Georgia does. They're probably a 17 or a 20 defense, and they really haven't played anybody. So the other thing is the hidden stuff of the numbers. Georgia's played, pretty good teams, so their defense of 10 is pretty good. Yeah, they gave up 22 to Kent, which I'm sure they didn't take that game seriously. But when Georgia wants to play, like against Florida, they play. And the line and the over in that game is based on the Florida game, right? Georgia beats Florida 48-20, 42-20 is a 62. We won because we had under 63. But even giving up that was only a 62. The over-under here is 66. Florida giving up 20. I got to watch the highlights of the game to see how they got it. I think it was, at the end of the game, though, when it was getting close, what did Georgia do? They sacked the quarterback 3 times, and that was the game. So when they have to, they'll sack it. I just think they'll sack Hooker a lot more because they won't pay attention to the running game. So with that said, going inside the numbers, does Ohio State, again, they haven't played anybody. And again, this is nobody they're playing. So as I was saying, there's a lot more teams that we now understand, but you still got to look at the numbers. Who did they play to really get it? So Ohio State, Northwestern, I think we go back to the Penn State game as far as Ohio State putting up 40 points on them. So they should put up at least 40 on Northwestern. Again, they won't be flat. They didn't get to the playoff. They're not going to get upset at Northwestern. So 55. The question with the 55 is that's probably a low total for this game, because I think Ohio State, if you go to tease it to 49, why will they shut up Northwestern? I mean, Northwestern is a weak offense, but with a bad defense. I think this game does get over more so than Ohio State minus 39. You cut to 33. So I don't know. I think Ohio State gets, let's say, 45 points. Northwestern maybe 10. So 55. So I think it gets into the 50s, but it's maybe close if they cover 33 in a conference game. That's tough, but I think over is the way to play it. Iowa, Purdue, again, Iowa, great under team. Purdue can score, good quarterback, good coach. 3.5. So how do you take Iowa 9.5? You can't. But 36.5 is such a low number. I can't play Iowa in 42.5. It's just too low. Look at last week. Iowa gets to 47, which is a low scoring game, but you're at 38. So I think it was 44. So the Iowa under loses because the line's so low, and I think that happens here. I think Purdue can certainly score. I don't know if Iowa found an offense, but Purdue doesn't have that strong defense that we like. We want Iowa to play Illinois or Iowa to play Michigan or, those are my under locks, right? Iowa, Michigan, lock under, wins. Iowa, Illinois, I don't know if I locked it, but it was under and it wins. Here, Purdue's more of an offensive team. They got a good offensive coach and good quarterback. They can easily score on Iowa, especially at home. Iowa at home versus Iowa on the road, which a lot of teams are much better at home. So I'm not buying the under in this game of 42.5. 36 is just too low for me. I'm almost buying over 30 because Purdue could get in the 20s. Iowa, like last week, found some points. So maybe they're tinkering around and they've lost their receivers and the new guys came in, took them a while. But I think Purdue minus the 3.5 plus the 2.5 is probably the best play in this thing. The over under, it was 41. At 41, I would have went under 47. At 36, I don't think I can do a Purdue game under 42. Even though they're playing Iowa, they'll find a way to score. Marion, Wisconsin, we know Tagliabue is playing. Wisconsin 4.5, 48. This is an under game. Maybe the dog, probably more of a dog game. Maryland can score 10.5. Wisconsin, so many injuries. They don't really have a good quarterback. They don't really have a great running back. Michigan State lit them up, scored 38 on them. It fucked my Michigan under with Michigan State because I go, wow, they scored 38 on Wisconsin. They're, 20 on Ohio State. They don't show up for Michigan, which is really hard to believe. And then they go beat up the guy in the tunnel with the helmet. So I don't know what to think of that. So I think Marion 10.5 is probably a good play. Over 10. Tagliabue playing. Wisconsin is their defense isn't as strong. And again, they don't have their coach. Jim Leonard's just subbing, but does he know how to coach? It's a good defensive coach, but is he a head coach? And then how do they call their offense? So I think Marion 10.5 is okay. A&M 3.5 over Florida, over under a 55. A&M at home, Florida. Florida played Georgia fairly, put up 20 points on them, if that means anything. I just think A&M's kind of a weak team. I think I like the dog here. Florida getting 9.5. I don't know. I'm not playing the game, but I think that's how I would play it. Over under, I don't know if Florida doesn't really have Florida's an over team. A&M kind of an under. They played Alabama 24-20, so I kind of like that was a 44. So I don't know. Kind of a hard game to call. TCU, Texas Tech. I have TCU 14. They're only 8.5. Tech's an over team. TCU's an A team, and they can score, and they got a good offense and a good quarterback. Over under of 69 to me is too much. TCU can run it, and I just think that like last week, TCU got killed by or Texas Tech got killed by somebody. Baylor killed them 45-17, so they got to 62. So they didn't score on Baylor. I don't know that they're going to score on TCU. Who's had, they held Oak State. I think that was TCU, against Oak State, and they took it to overtime. I don't like the 69 here because Texas Tech could easily get slammed by TCU and not score a lot. And at 8.5, to lay 2.5 with TCU at home, and they beat some good teams. TCU TCU needs the game to get into the playoffs. Texas Tech showed you last week. They got killed by Baylor. So, who is Texas Tech? They kill West Virginia. They get killed by Baylor. They get killed in, I think Iowa State. So I definitely don't like Texas Tech here or the over because it's too high. If this is a 60 and I need 54, yeah, it's over. But 69, that's I think the 8.5 makes it too appealing to take TCU minus 2.5 is way more appealing than messing around with the 69, especially at home. Texas Tech, yeah, at home again, but they're not at home. They're at TCU. TCU should beat them. Good offense. Even if they're down, they can score as they did against Oak State. So definitely like TCU here. It's 69 over under. I think it's a little too high. Tulane, Tulsa, 7.5, 58. I like Tulane here. Tulane is the A team. Very strong offense, defense. Tulsa's really an over team. They have a weak defense. And I think Tulsa's going to have trouble against Tulane because they got a good defense. And I think Tulane's going to move on Tulsa because of the over defense. So I think 1.5 with Tulane is fine. I think that's the way to go. Probably over 58 is doable too to get to 52. But I definitely think Tulane minus 1.5 is a good way to go. Western Kentucky, Charlotte. As I stated, I don't understand the 72 here. What the hell's going on with Western Kentucky 72? And then they score, and their games are in the 50s. So I don't buy the 72. That's ridiculous. Charlotte, yes, we love Reynolds, the quarterback, but their defense sucks. Western Kentucky is a B team statistically. I think Charlotte in 21, they lit up somebody last week with like 49 points. See, this is amazing, and this is the problem with Vegas. This is why we're successful. Everybody's looking at what happened last week. They don't look at the whole picture. So Charlotte put up like 49 on some team last week. And they go, oh, they're going to score. And look at the Florida-Georgia game. Oh, Florida scored 20 on Georgia. Oh, so we'll make it a 66. Because after all, look at Tennessee did to Alabama. And I don't think it works that way. If you looked at the whole picture of Georgia, you'd realize if they want to, they were way up on Florida. Florida scored, I think, a late touchdown or whatever, but Georgia's the national champ, right? But now they're going to be tested with Tennessee, and that's really the key where you probably won't see the over in this game. So that's my point. So they've been kind of sleeping. So Western Kentucky, Charlotte, again, they're looking at last week. They're making the total 72 that Charlotte put up 49 last week. I don't think they put up 49 on Western Kentucky, but I do like them at home as a dog getting 20 with Reynolds. They'll score. VTech, G-Tech, VTech lane 2.5, 40.5. I did like the under, but now that Sims is playing, I kind of like Georgia Tech because Virginia Tech, we now go to is a weak favorite. They don't score a lot. Their defense is okay. Georgia Tech has been coming on a little bit, and with their quarterback, I think Georgia Tech could win the game, but I don't think they'll get blown out. So I like Georgia Tech at 8.5 here. Again, I liked it under with the quarterback, but if with the quarterback out, but he's not out, so makes it much different. All right, UCLA, Arizona State. UCLA 10.5 up to 66. Arizona State does score. They're an over team, unlike Stanford last week. So people are like, oh, we're playing UCLA over again? And it's like, yes, but this isn't Stanford. This is a team that's explosive, Arizona State, and gives up a lot. I think they played Washington. They think they beat them like 45-34, which shows me not only can Arizona State score, but UCLA will have no problem. But it'll scare UCLA. UCLA could run it at Stanford. I think Charbonnet read it like 35 times or something. Excuse me. You get these calls, and then you call them back, and it's always, did you vote? Or you want free health care, whatever. Let me silence my phone. I apologize for that. So At least I stopped sneezing, kind of. Um, so Arizona State can score, which is going to scare UCLA. They're not going to run Charbonnet 35 times because they're going to see they can score so easily on Arizona State. So I think they look at the game. They realize Arizona State's for real. They can score. I don't love UCLA laying 10.5 down to 4.5 in Arizona State. I think this is a very high scoring game. And that's the difference in the Western Kentucky game. I don't think Western Kentucky scores that much. UCLA is an A team, but not really. Statistically, they're an A. But when they play the big boys, the Oregons, the Washingtons, they've been very high. They've been in the 70s, and Utah. All three of the big offensive teams they played scored in the 30s on them, and they scored in the 40s on them. So I think that's what you're going to get here. You're going to get a 75, and at 66, go over 60. This is one that I bet as soon as I saw the game, I then bet the play and one of these Monday plays that the lines definitely moved on it. So I like the game over. I think this is definitely a 75-point game, over under 66. See, that's the difference. It's 66. I go 60. It's doable. 60 is 35-31, and we got 60. We've won, right? UCLA is going to be in the 40s. Arizona State could be in the 40s. Again, Arizona State is a more explosive team. I think Herb Edwards probably played to the defense because he was a defensive player, but he's gone. The new coach has gone on offense, and they've been scoring a lot. So I don't have any problems with Arizona State scoring. That would be your question. Can they score? But they are an over team with a weak defense. So UCLA should have a field day with this one. Arizona, Utah. Again, I love the game over if Rising plays. Utah, again, just like UCLA, they're A team statistically, but when Utah plays USC and UCLA, they're 70-point games, even though against the rest, they're unders. So it's a real convoluted, you've got to understand, and I think I was talking about this yesterday in the NFL or 2 days, with the colors, right? A blue team has a running quarterback, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. The red team have the Tom Brady and the Rodgers. So you break down the team and are they blue or red, and then how do you defend? So how does Pittsburgh play Lamar Jackson? How are they gonna play Hurts, which Pittsburgh just played Hurts, and then how do they play Kyler Murray? How do they play the other guys who run the Buffalo quarterback and things like that? And so I think you do the same thing here. Well, there's Utah under, except for UCLA and Utah. So how do they play those teams versus the rest of the teams? Utah has a good defense, but you can't stop USC, UCLA, or Utah, or Oregon for that matter, or Washington. You can't stop them no matter who you have, unless, Georgia did, but that was the exception. Which leads you to Georgia, Tennessee, which says, well, shit, Oregon got 3 points on them. Sorry, fellas. And look what Oregon's done since. So you got to respect that defense. So Utah, Arizona, over Utah 17.5, 67. Smells like Rising's going to play because of that line. If he's out, I would have expected it to be 10 or 12. It is at Utah in the mountains, so that helps. Versus the desert. It's a whole big difference going to the desert to play versus going to the mountains and playing. So again, until we know about Rising and Thomas and the tight end, until we know they're playing, and then how healthy are they? And will they play the whole game? If they get up 20 points, are they going to sit them out because they're kind of injured? So again, we can't make a play on this till we know if they're playing. All I can say is if Rising and let's say the tight end play, this is certainly an over game. Arizona will light them up. Arizona is good for at least 35 points in this game. If Utah doesn't have their guns, it's almost an Arizona play. If Utah does have their guns, then it's an overplay, which, again, we don't know. It's Friday. I guess we'll have to either look at the injuries tonight, or if ESPN says it, or we'll find out tomorrow. But we'll see what the line does. But I think this is a 3:30 game or something like that. South Florida Temple. South Florida sinks. Temple is a under team. They're both W teams, but Temple's got a much better defense, so they're almost kind of an under team. South Florida is just terrible. Bad defense, bad offense. Over under a 51 on the game, and South Florida 3.5. I think this is a Temple play and an under play. South Florida can't be favored over anybody, especially on the road, which makes Temple very doable at 9.5. And then 51, you go under 57 with Temple. They are a strong defense with they're not explosive offensively. So I don't know where the points are going to come from. And South Florida, their quarterback Plumlee is, whoever their quarterback is. No, Plumlee, I think's at the other one. This quarterback, I don't know I don't remember who it is, but I definitely like. I would click on my link, but I'm not my tab, but I'm not going there. So I'm going to sit there and just. I think you can either go Temple or under on it. Marshall 2.5, 46. Marshall is an under team. They did go to Notre Dame and beat them, and then they lost to the game last week to Coastal Carolina, beat them 24-13. So Coastal Carolina is playing better, so we'll keep our eye on them. Now that's what we like. It's not like the eye test, but it's how they are playing, and they beat Marshall. Now they beat App State. Now we go, okay, they must have got their players back or fixed what was wrong. And now, because again, in that one game, they lost by 50 points to, Georgia State or I know they lost to Georgia Southern. There was a weak team they got killed by. I think it was Charlotte, Rice or something. I mean, it was terrible. So now they fixed that. So this game should be low scoring. Marshall again is an under team. They don't score a lot, but they have a good defense. Old D's not really a scoring team. Yeah, Old D's the one that beat Coastal. Like the running back ran for like 300 yards. He hasn't done that since. So it was Coastal, not Old D's running back. That's always what you don't know what it is. Is it the running back or is it their defense? So Old D's an even team with a kind of a weak defense. I don't want to mess with Marshall. It's only 2.5. I only get 8.5. I do think the plays under 46-52 is probably a good play here because of I just think Marshall plays low scoring games and they have a good defense and they're going to run the ball and keep the game low scoring. And Old D doesn't really score a lot either normally. Baylor, Oklahoma. We're thinking there could be tornadoes, but we don't think there is because the line has not been – the line opened at 57 over, went to 61, and stuck there. Oklahoma 3.5 favorite. I like Baylor as the dog, as I've liked them every week, and I like the over because it's a nice low over. At the time it was 57 when I bet it. Now it's 61. And so what you're looking at is – you get the game, you see it, it's 57. You go, that's a joke, 51. Then it goes to 61, and now it's stopped. If it drops back to 57, then we might have tornado problems. As of now, and I think they would have kind of preluded to it, but as of now, if we wake up tomorrow and it's still 61, we don't have tornado issues, then bet the game over hard. Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel, very explosive offense, no defense. Baylor, we know, is explosive. We know they're a very good team, but they're not going to stop Oklahoma from scoring. Oklahoma's going to get their 40, but so will Baylor. This will be an 80-point game, and we only have to lay 55. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is a joke. So as long as the tornado stays away, this is a joke over. Middle Tennessee, L-Tech. Middle Tennessee's laying 2.5, 63.5. They're both over teams, although I saw some injuries to the quarterback of L-Tech, but I don't know if it's the starter or not. I'll have to research that. I think this is over. 63.5 is not too much. I don't know if I can trust Middle Tennessee laying 2.5 or trust L Tech getting 8.5 as a home dog. I don't know that I can do. I don't know if Middle Tennessee is a weak favorite, shouldn't be favorite, and they're favored on the road. So that's usually what I look at. If the team's not that good, they shouldn't be favored anyway. And then you favor them on the road, you've got, that's definitely problems. So I like the game over 63, I think. I don't know with the quarterback injuries if I can trust L Tech. But L Tech, if that guy plays, they'll win the game. Georgia State, Southern Miss. Southern Miss is an E team with a decent defense. Georgia State, we know, is a good offensive team, not much defense. Can somebody explain this over-under? This over-under just went from 52, it looks like, to 48.5. You got Georgia State in the 48.5? Really? Are they playing Georgia? No, they're playing Southern Miss. I know they're running the ball with Frank Gore Jr.'s son a lot, but they are an under team, but a 48.5 with Georgia State, I think, is a bit under. I could see Southern Miss putting up 30, Georgia State putting up 30, 48. This is clearly an over. Because Southern Miss doesn't have that great of a defense, and in that conference, so then you get into who did Southern Miss play to really find out why is it an under. And here's where if they played a Division II in some they played UMass and Connecticut, well, yeah, but this is Georgia State. This is a really good offense. So I doubt they've seen this, and I think the 48's a joke. I think go over 42. See, again, I'm finding so many games. How do I differentiate what to play and what not to play when I like so many games? So anyway, that's what's going on. I've already played 3 10-team teasers, and then it's like I could play a second 10-team teaser. I got so many games. Pitt 3.5, 48 against Syracuse. Schrader, the quarterback for Syracuse, who got hurt against Clemson or Notre Dame last week, is still he's still questionable. So we don't know if he's playing or not. Pitt has been a major disappointment with Slovis. They got killed by North Carolina last week, 42-24. So Syracuse, they've gotten injuries, so you've got to factor that in. A lot of defensive injuries. Don't know if they're starters or not, but it doesn't matter. And then Pitt. So I don't know how Pitt's favored in the game. I'd take Syracuse if Schrader plays. Syracuse quarterback plays, we take Syracuse. If he doesn't play, I don't know what to tell you because I don't know then if it's an over and under. And the Notre Dame game was 2 block punts and some interceptions. So they didn't really give up all that many points. They held Clemson 27-21. So probably an under. Just because I don't think Pitt's going to, because Syracuse has a good defense, but we'll see. They've had 2 tough games, Clemson and Notre Dame, so this shouldn't bother them at all. But I think it's only a play if the quarterback plays. You take Syracuse in the 9.5. Oregon, hey Don, you like Louisiana Lafayette +4 and the points versus Troy. I like Texas 2.5 over Kansas State. Well, I'll get to those games. Syracuse bit. Okay, so we like Syracuse if the quarterback plays. Oregon, Colorado. This is a touchy one. Oregon's 31.5, over under is 62. Colorado is the Z team. We're not counting on Colorado to score. Oregon's got a big number here, 31.5 on the road. Oregon should light them up. Colorado, I think, started scoring a little bit. They did beat Cal at home, who really sucks anyway. So, don't know what to say with this one. I think the only way you can play the game is Oregon -25 because you can't count on Colorado to score, which means you can't count the 62. The only way you're going to win the 62 is if Oregon gets you the 62, then they'll handle the 31. I think laying 25.5, I think, is doable in this. So Ohio State is 38.5. They got to win by more than 30. At least this is 25. 25, 28 is doable, especially against the Z team. So I like Oregon here, but I don't like the over in the fact that I don't think Colorado can score. See, some of the games I get twisted because the team has a pretty good offense, so you don't know if they're going to cover or they're going to come along with and score. And now you got a 40-30 game and overs to play because they're not going to cover the 20. So again, you're trying to figure that out. So I like Oregon laying the 25. They're just so explosive. They need to win. We'll see what happens. West Virginia, Iowa State, 7.5. Over under was 50.5 down to 49.5. It's Iowa State. Enough said. You just play them under. They play a very low scoring brand of ball. West Virginia got killed by Baylor. Iowa State won't put up the points that Baylor put up, but look what Baylor did. They held them to 17, and they'll be lucky to get 17 on Iowa State. They just have a great defense, the great coach who plays for low-scoring games, and therefore Iowa State 56. They probably won't even get into the 40s. Again, they played Kansas 14-11. They played Kansas State 10-9. These are teams putting up 50 on everybody else. Look at Kansas State, 49-0 on Oak State. And it was a 10-9 game with Iowa State. That's how you kind of that's the whole point, right? So again, I think Iowa State under. You don't fuck with Iowa State -1.5 when you got a 50-point over under. That's the so you look at them both ways and you go, no, there's no way that's going to hit 56. Oak State, Kansas. Again, this is another tornado game, and that is Kansas going to get hit. Well, we got two over teams. Oak State's got to be pissed, getting shut out 49-0. And Kansas does not have the defense, Kansas State. Kansas State's pretty good defense with Iowa State, but Kansas does not have the defense. Look for Oak State to get pissed. They're embarrassed. They got shut out. They're not going to get shut out here. Kansas can score on anybody. They already proven that. They played TCU 38-31. I think they got over with Texas. They went over every week. Oklahoma was an over. They seem to get you in the second half where you think, oh, my God, and then here comes the second half. And they score 30 points, and they cover the over for you. They did that last week. They did that against Oklahoma. I think the other team gets tired from scoring on them, but this should be very high scoring. Again, keep an eye on it. It was 61. Now it's 64. So if this drops, actually, I think it started at 68 and it went down to 65 and then 64. It's going down a little, but not terribly. If we see this drop to 60, we know there's tornado. We got to be careful. So let's keep an eye on that. But I think that as of now, it looks like it's no tornado, and they could easily go off to a different spot or stall. So this is definitely an over game. Kansas, beautiful over team, being fine, the backup quarterback, the coach, a very strong offensive mind, and we know Oak State, they score and they're going to be pissed. And they might get it all by themselves. We need 58. Oak State could put up 58. They're going to be that pissed after getting shut out. So, again, keep that in mind here. Michigan State, Illinois, we talked about. Again, Michigan State with 10 defensive players from the tunnel incident are all suspended for the game. Illinois is now a 16-point favorite, and over-under is down to 40.5. So this is a tough one. Illinois would have been this would have been a lock under if Michigan State didn't suspend all their players. But now this should be a little bit more high scoring. Michigan State can score. They scored 20 on Ohio State. They didn't show up against Michigan. So I don't know what to think. Illinois is a much better team. As I just showed you, they give up 8 points a game. So they're always an under team against other under teams. So if Illinois played Iowa State and then the over-under is more than 20, I'm betting it under. So that's what you have here. You really have an under game, but with all the injuries to Michigan State, you're like, well, what do I do? Because Illinois could score. Michigan State, I think, will get 14, but Illinois could get 40, and this game could easily go to 50. Illinois can score. They got a good running back. Michigan State are going to stop them. So Illinois might actually get you the 40 might, so it'd be under 46. They might get you 40 of it. But they're laying 16 and a half, makes it a real tough because Michigan State does have the offense. So it makes it tough to lay 10 and a half with Illinois. They're not, it'd be like laying it with Iowa State. They don't blow you out. You just don't score on them. And I think it's similar here. So I don't love the 10 and a half, but now I don't really love the under because I'm afraid of all these suspensions. So if you do have to play it, I guess I'd play it under and just hope they shut out Michigan. If they shut out Michigan State, the under will work. We'll see. Penn State, Indiana. Penn State 13 and a half, 49 and a half. Good luck. I don't know. Penn State. They played Ohio State pretty good and then got blown out at the end against Indiana. Indiana's got injuries to the receivers, I pointed out in the injury segment, so it's going to be hard for them. Penn State, probably this is an over game. Penn State's got a fairly good defense. Indiana at home, played Michigan pretty tough for a while. And the fact they played Michigan, okay, now we played Michigan, now we play Penn State. So it helps you out against these other teams that gets you familiar with what they're bringing you. But I think this is an over 43. I don't love Penn State laying 7.5 to Indiana. I think Indiana 19.5 could be a good play, but I don't trust them enough because they don't have a defense. So without the defense, it makes it they're not going to stop Penn State, which makes it more of an over game. New Mexico, Utah State 14 and a half. Really? Over under of 43. You got to play this game under. New Mexico is Iowa State is Illinois. Very strong defensive team with no offense. So let's pretend it's Iowa, Utah State. What would you do with it? You'd be under, especially 43. You get under 49. I think that's the way to play. Utah State's got 3 quarterbacks injured that are, who knows if they're playing, so we'll see. But this game's under. Washington State, Stanford. Again, Washington State, some injuries on offense and a great defense. Stanford beat Notre Dame 15-14, played an under with UCLA, holding them to 38, which is good. I think this is an under also. This started at 49 and a half, and now it's 48 and a half, I think. I think I saw 54, unless I wrote down the wrong game. And then it went back to 48 and a half. So there must have been an error made. Anyway, 48 and a half, so 54 and a half. Washington, Stanford, this game won't get close. Washington State doesn't score that much, and Stanford, you played Notre Dame to a 15-14 game. It's almost what I'm thinking the Clemson game will be. A little low scoring, and then they'll take Ugly Gobly out, and then Clemson will win the game. But I think it's an under the Notre Dame game, but we'll get there. But that's how you jump, right? Stanford plays at 15-14. And Stanford's a weak defense. They give up points, but again, they played USC, Washington, Oregon, so they got to play the big shooters, and that's why they're an over team. So it's again back to, well, here's how they play Oregon, UCLA, USC, and then here's how they play Notre Dame, and even against UCLA, they held them to 35. That's why they're an over defense, but they're really not. So I like this game under. Washington State, always a good underplay, especially when they're playing a weaker team like Stanford, not the UCLA, Utahs, and teams like that. Did we get to your game yet, Don? Texas, Kansas State. Well, I'm getting to that. Lou Lafayette and Troy. Yeah, I'm coming to those games. Uh, Georgia, Tennessee. That's the free play. Take Georgia. Lay the 2.5. Try to keep it under 3. Just too much defense. They beat them every year. Tennessee, yes, at home, beat Alabama at the end. Alabama was able to move on Tennessee. Georgia is going to play a little different. They're not going to throw it down their throats. They're going to run it down their throats. They got the good tight end. I just think Georgia is just going to keep the ball away, power it down, score, and then they're going to attack, and they're just going to play this strong defense. And I think they're at home, and they are pissed. They're not number one. So look at I would not bet against Georgia this week. I like Tennessee. I had them against Alabama, but I played them over. I'm not crazy, but here I don't see how you can play Tennessee here, and I don't see how you can play over 66.5 in a Georgia game. So you're going to play over 60. You're going to hope for points versus going under 72, which probably is a lock under 72. I played Georgia, but that under, I can easily see it. I can easily see them running the ball, keeping the ball away, and this will be a lower scoring game. Probably still be in the 50s, high. Let's go like 38 or 40. Let's go like 40 to 20. So it's probably still a 60. Yeah, that's what last year was 44-17 or something. It was a 61. So I see somewhere around that. Maybe Tennessee maybe they get into the upper 20s. Florida, Georgia is probably upper 30s. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this hits 60, but that would be it. Maybe not. So free play, take Georgia. UCF, Memphis. Georgia's UCF's 3.5, 58. Oh, again, this is the Plumlee team. I got it confused with South Florida. So Plumlee, just a running quarterback from Mississippi. They went with Dart from USC, so Mississippi. So Plumlee goes to UCF. They should have to make trades. So right now, these guys just transfer, and it really fucks the team that they lose the thing that you should have to reciprocate. Okay. If I'm paying your scholarship. You want to go to this other team? Fine. They should have to give me something back. Why should I lose you? You're my scholarship. I'm paying you. Just like in the NFL, you don't just have free agent, you trade. And that's how it should be here. The NBA is all wrong with this free agency shit. It should be you're my asset. You want to go, I'll trade you for this. But I don't like they just go and they lose it. So again, Memphis and 9.5. Yeah, I think I like Memphis. If Plumlee's out, I think Memphis. I think UCF will be a weak favorite, especially in Memphis. And Memphis, strong team, but an over defense, so they're going to give up points. But UCF's not going to be able to take advantage because Gabriel's on Oklahoma. So the guy who can do the damage, the Plumlee who runs, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. And they should score. They'll probably try to run and keep the ball away from Memphis. But if Memphis gets the lead, they're going to win because UCF won't be able to come back. So I like Memphis as the home dog here. UTSA, UAB. I want the dog, and they're not giving me a dog. The spread's even over under a 52. UAB, very strong defense. They're I got them as a B team. They were an A team. UTSA is an over team. So if this game should have a favorite. If UAB was laying 3, I know why. The quarterback's questionable on UAB. That's what it is. Dylan Hopkins is questionable here. So if he doesn't play, then I definitely like UTSA. If he does play, I still like UTSA. But it'll be an under game because UAB will run the ball, or they got the backup quarterback. But yeah, with the quarterback out or questionable, makes this a UTSA play. So definitely like UTSA. I hope they're a dog. Then I really like them. But right now, I'd take the 6 with UTSA over UAB because of the quarterback. Arkansas Liberty. This is confusing the hell out of me. Arkansas 14.5, 61.5. I love Jefferson. I love Arkansas, but Liberty beat BYU 42-14. I'm like, huh? Now, you know me, I want to bet against weak defenses, but not Liberty does not have a weak defense. They actually have a strong defense. Now, a lot of their games they played were against weak opponents, but you go back to the BYU game, 42-14 against them. And I don't know if the quarterback from BYU played or not. So that's where we're at with it. So I do like, I don't know. It's a tough one to take Arkansas, lay the 8.5, because Liberty can score on a quality team like BYU. That leaves you with over 61-55. I think that's the best way to play it. Liberty's got an under defense, but I don't think they're not seeing a team like Arkansas. So let's go over in the game. I think there'll be a lot of scoring either way. Navy, Cincy, we talked a little bit about Navy's quarterbacks out, who's throwing the ball, who's completing it, that's why Navy's an over team. You take the quarterback out on a team like Navy, can the backup quarterback throw like the quarterback was throwing? Maybe he can, but we don't know. Cincy with the strong defense, over under looks like it's 44.5. And it's hard to play Cincy in an over game because they're very strong defensively. They're laying 18.5. I don't know. This is a real tough one. I think under until we see if Navy's backup quarterback can throw and score. Otherwise, this would have been Navy in 20. 20 would have been 26. I would have taken Navy in 26 because they're scoring. But here, I got to be careful. Cincinnati never seems to cover big numbers. So I think this then becomes an under game because they'll go back to running, and Cincinnati is a defense. South Alabama, Georgia Southern. South Alabama laying 3.5. They are an A team. They're very strong in that conference. They're the ones who lost to UCLA by 1. Georgia Southern we love. We've been betting them all year, winning all the time with them. You get 9.5 with Georgia Southern as a home dog. UCLA beat them 32-31, South Alabama. So I think Georgia Southern and 9.5's doable. I don't like I don't know, over 60. Yeah, you're probably going to get that too. So I think you can either tease the dog or take the over. Georgia Southern will score on you. So maybe go over with the game. All right, let's get to Don's play. Troy, Lou Lafayette. Troy, 3.5, 43.5. Both teams are under. Troy is a very strong defense, low scoring. Lou Lafayette's been low scoring, 43.5. I like it under, Don. You like the points. It's a better under than a points because of Troy being a very strong defensive team. And Lou Lafayette, they don't have Levi Lewis and they don't have their coach. So you got to be careful with Lou Lafayette, but Troy will keep the game low. So I think you'll go under with it. Your next thought was Texas minus 2.5 over K-State. I like K-State as the dog, and I like it over. I think it's a low over. If it was a 65, I wouldn't like it over, but because it's only a 54.5. All I need is 48. Kansas State. Now, Kansas State played, TCU or Baylor to a 38-28 game where they were up 28, and then I think it was TCU, and they came back and got the win. Now, Kansas State's a very good team with Will Howard, the quarterback, much better than the other quarterback, Martinez, who obviously sucks. He sucked at Nebraska, gets the coach fired, and now he sucks here. So he's questionable, which we don't even care. We want Will Howard to play. But if Will Howard plays, this will be a higher scoring game. And therefore, I like the dog. Kansas State is a very good team, as they showed last week. 49-0 over Oak State. Who does that? I looked at Oak State's schedule. TCU, Texas, Baylor. They're scoring 40 points a game against those teams. How do you get shut out? So I like K-State as a dog, and I like the game over, Don. Texas State, Lou Monroe. Texas State, another one of these, like Troy, a very strong under team. Lou Monroe is a weak offense over team. I think you take I think you go under in this game because it's 52. Texas State's not going to score. And Lou Monroe doesn't score. Even though they have a weak defense, a team like Texas State's not going to hurt you. So I think go under in this game, 58.5. They'll never get there. Alabama, LSU. Alabama, 13.5, 56.5. What do you think? So Tennessee 40, LSU 13 at LSU a few weeks back. Tells me LSU doesn't have the secondary. Also, when I did the injuries, the two safeties for LSU are out. The two cornerbacks are already out. So they're probably, I don't know if they're the starting secondary, but they've lost 4 secondary players. And against Bryce Young, that ain't a good thing. LSU, we don't know what they are now. I don't love their quarterback. It's one of these running quarterbacks. Has a big game against Mississippi State or Mississippi. Who gives a shit? This is Alabama. This is like prime rib versus hamburger. Alabama. Now this is Death Valley at night. You got to be careful about. I think it'll be a very emotional game. However, Alabama off the loss is do or die. Backs against the wall. This is a clear backs against the wall. LSU's already lost 2 games. They lost to Florida State. They lost to Tennessee. They still got to play Auburn and a couple of their rivalries here. So Alabama, 13.5. Now it's a really skewed history because Joe Burrow, he killed Alabama. And then last year, and then the last few years, Alabama came back. So, again, it's always the quarterback. I don't really love LSU's quarterback, although his stats are good. He's 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's a running quarterback, which will give Alabama a problem. Alabama's played bad against a good Texas. So Texas is an under defense. They had trouble with A&M, who's a under defense. They only got 24 there. And then Tennessee was a 100-point game because Tennessee's defense is not. It's kind of an under. What do I got? I got it as an under, but even after the Alabama game, but Florida kind of lit up Tennessee a little bit too. So we'll see. I wonder if Florida's got a better offense than we think, even though the quarterback sucks. They scored. They do get some points. They beat Utah somehow. That's crazy. So Alabama laying 13.5. It was 12.5. I can lay 7.5 with Alabama, who should win. But if the miracle happens, the only way the miracle happens, LSU wins on a Saturday night in Baton Rouge, it's going to be rocking there. They're going to score points. And Alabama will score points also. So when I look at the game, if LSU plays, very emotional, which they will, I think leads to more points. I don't think you're going to stop Alabama from scoring. I don't think LSU can do that. They haven't shown that. I'm a little leery laying 7.5 to LSU on a Saturday night, who I don't know who they are. They got killed by Tennessee and they lost to Florida State. And really all haven't really beaten a good team. Maybe Mississippi State. So I think that I heard somebody say LSU should be in the top 10. I'm like, you got to be kidding. So everybody thinks the Tennessee game beating Alabama is the greatest game, the greatest upset this year. That's why Tennessee's number 1. They beat Alabama. But what if Alabama loses here? That they should have had 4 losses now, right? They should have lost to Texas, should have lost to A&M. They hand the ball to the running back, they lose to A&M. They lost to Tennessee, and now here you got at LSU. And so Alabama's really choking hard. but they will score, and LSU will score on Alabama, I feel. So I really like this game over 50.5. I think that's a low number. It's 28-24, and you win. And there's no way Alabama is not getting 40 in this game. And let's see, this LSU quarterback should give them a little problem running, which should lead to points, which should lead to 20. So I think Alabama wins the game. Let's say 35-24. That's my guess. So that's a 59. Over under 56 goes to 50. Very doable. Wouldn't play the game under because I don't see defense that can. You can't say Alabama's got a good defense. Tennessee scored 100, and LSU, Tennessee put up a 40 on them. So Alabama, upper 30s, LSU mid 20s. That's how I see it. If there's a lot of turnovers, it'll be a little higher. Maybe LSU gets the block, punt, the kickoff return. Maybe Boucher plays well for once. You get the turnovers, then you really get that. That's when you hit the 70s. So we'll see what happens. But, Alabama, they'll get a strip sack. They'll get a punt return. They get all these strange touchdowns that aren't just normally their offense. So I think you got to go over in this game. Houston, SMU. Hey, Bobby. Well, I had things to do for the trip yesterday, get my hair cut and some other stuff. So I figured I'll do 2 classes today. So my computer, I clicked on my football tab and then I clicked back and I lost YouTube. So I won't click off of YouTube. When I'm clicking on the icon on the top, I might have too many open. I don't know. It's blowing them up. So when I try to come back to it, it's gone. So anyway, with that said, I've gone through the line. So if you go to the first video, I think I've finished the line and I was working on the injuries. Now we're actually doing the picks. So it's 3 phases on my things. But anyway, I hope you're well, Bobby, and you better buy your gold and silver very, very quickly because it's about to blow. Houston, SMU. SMU's laying, I think, 2.5 or 3.5. Over under a 66. Both teams are explosive as hell. Both teams have weak defenses. Now, if there was a game that should be 75, it should be this one. You're giving me 66, which means 60, which means 31-30. I got a winner. Both teams hit 40s here. It's an 80-point game at least. I love the over in this game. See, this is the point. I got so many games that I like. It's how am I going to bet 4 games? So this is why I bet a lot of these games is because they're just right there. Houston, SMU, how can you not bet that game over? But you already got the other game. You got the Iowa State under. You got the UCLA. You got USC. You got all of them. So it's a good bet, bet it. It's a good bet, bet it. And that's how I do it. I don't say, oh, what's my top 5? Who the hell who knows? I've got 6 or 8 locks already in this, and I could have more. I got one in the pros. I love it, but we got to see if everybody's playing or not. So SMU Houston goes over 60, no problem. San Diego State, got to be clean out to go lay the smackdown on your girl. Well, yeah, I still gotta call the bank and tell them I'm going so they don't freeze the credit card. I love that. You're in Europe, you use your credit card, and all of a sudden the next time you go to use it, they freeze it because they go, oh, you're in Europe. So you got to call them and say, I'm going to be in Portugal. Don't stop the card when you see Portugal expenses. And I'll bring a little bit of money, but it doesn't help me because I need euros. So it doesn't make sense. So if you guys ever travel to Europe, don't bring cash and exchange it, right? So if you're going to Amsterdam to find some hot women, don't bring your US and then try to convert it to euro. Use your ATM because it gives you, give me €100. It charges you whatever the rate is. You get €100, and it's a lot less expensive than finding a bank and transactioning it. They'll charge you this 10% bullshit fee. So go into the ATM and pull the euros out that way. I'll bring a little bit, but really it's ATM, and then I'll bring some gold and silver in case I get trapped there. I'll at least have that. But anyway, so UNLV, San Diego State. San Diego State 6.5, 48. San Diego State always an under team. Not much offense, strong defense. UNLV, as I said, if Brumfeld's out, they're an over team this year, but not with the quarterback out, they stink. So this is clearly, if Brumfeld doesn't play the Vegas quarter, this is definitely an under. San Diego State doesn't score, and very little. And maybe you take San Diego State even if he's out, or the under. BYU, Boise, what happened to BYU? They literally suck now. Boise 7.5, 55. Boise's not much better. They had a good game last week against some shit team. They're good defensively. They're a B team, so they score a little and they have a good defense. BYU's now an over, but against Notre Dame they played them 28-22. So again, I see this game as Boise, but Boise's an under. Over under at 55. I don't know. I mean, this game could go either way. They could explode and go to 70, or they could play a 40-point game. So this is a game. I think we have enough of the other games to just watch. I think Boise at home wins, but I don't know which BYU team shows up. Florida State, Miami. Florida State 7.5, 53.5. And yes, Tyler Van Dyke is playing. They have some injuries to the offensive line, as we discussed, but they're going to play, I assume. I wonder how is gold going for out there. Well, it's all priced in U.S. dollars, so it's still going to be 1,800 once you convert it from the euro. Well, the euro is 1,800 anyway because it's even money with the dollar. So Pakistan's a little different because they got the hyperinflation. And as all the other countries go to hyperinflation, that's when gold takes off. So soon. So with Van Dyke playing, they're going to score more. They are a home dog. They are a very good defensive team this year, as is Florida State. So without Van Dyke, I was going to go under because it was 53.5. With Van Dyke, I like Miami in 13.5. They'll find ways to score. Their defense is tough. This will be a close, low-scoring game, I believe. It's a rivalry, as we know. The rivalries tend to be a little bit more close to the vest, a little bit lower scoring, unless it's Michigan, Ohio State. And, try to do a little bit less turnover. So I look at this as take Miami in 13.5 because Van Dyke's playing. He'll keep it close. They could easily win it with Van Dyke. He'll figure out a way to get the ball out, even though the linemen are injured. He'll keep a back end or a tight end or something like that. Michigan, 25-45 against Rutgers. Rutgers, no offense, decent defense. Michigan, decent offense, decent defense. Not sure what you do with this game. I have under circled because Rutgers, they're not going to – they got a good defense. They're not going to score. The Michigan probably shuts them out. Question is, how much does Michigan get? I think under 51 is a good play. I think Michigan minus 19 is a good play. Because they run the ball, they'll get enough. They'll win 31-0, something like that. Well, they'll score enough, but they won't. But their quarterback's terrible. This McCarthy, he's one of these running guys who can't throw. I mean, all he can do is throw the ball underneath. It's like Tagliabue was until he got Hill. Just dump down. So that's how Michigan is. Ohio State's going to kill them. But this is they're going to run the guy 40 times this game. they'll get because they're running, they'll score touchdowns, and that's I think 31-0 is the score there. Let's see. South Car, Vandy, South Car 6.5, 48.5. South Car, we hate Rattler. He's terrible. When you suck in Oklahoma with that offense, you really suck. He's terrible here. He's got like 6 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He's not a good quarterback. Vandy is an over team based on the Hawaii game and the Division II games. But when they played Alabama, lost 55-3. They played Georgia, lost 58-0. Enough said. So I think that's what you're looking at. I think this is probably an under game. Vandy probably won't score. South Carolina doesn't really have a good offense to put up a lot. This is a 48.5. So under 54.5 with South Car, I think is doable. Vandy's just pathetic, but so South Car. So if Vandy was a better offense, I would take them as a home dog, but I don't think I can trust them. Auburn, Mississippi State 12.5, 50.5. Auburn, I don't know. They're kind of a weak team with a weak defense. Mississippi State's a B team. Unless they play anybody good, then they get killed. LSU killed them. Tennessee, I don't know if they played Tennessee. No, they're a crossover. So they play LSU, beat them. They'll play Alabama, who will kill them. They get to miss Georgia and Tennessee, I think. Auburn, certainly. What are you going to do? Mississippi State 12.5. What are you going to do with that? Auburn could play, they have talent, and then it becomes – I think they fired their coach again. So I don't know what to do with an Auburn team with a fired coach. Mississippi State, I don't know. I hate to lay 6.5 with them. This is a team that crushed us against Alabama, couldn't even score. It was like, oh, it's 4th down and 5. Let's at our own 29. Let's go for it. Oh, my God. So, again, you got an idiot coach who goes for it on their own 29 against Alabama. And as soon as you didn't make it, the game was over. Alabama then went on, scored a few more, and that was the game. They do have a decent defense. Maybe we go under with I don't know. I mean, Mississippi State with Leach should score a lot, but I don't know. This is a very strange game. Maybe take 6.5. Take Mississippi State. I don't know. They could go off. If anything's going to happen, they'll go off against this weak Auburn defense. So let's look at that. Louisville, James Madison. Louisville 7.5. Over under 52.5. They just killed Wake Forest. They got 8 turnovers on Hartman. So they are for real. I think it's an under game. Louisville doesn't. Both teams are A teams, so good defenses. I think 52.5. I think I go under in the game. Louisville probably, if down to 1.5 at home, should handle that. Clemson, Notre Dame. This is my other free play today. So the free play, the first one was take Georgia -2, 2.5. And we're going to go Clemson, Notre Dame. Clemson's laying 3.5, over under of 44.5. And I'm pondering this, and I'm looking at the Stanford game. Stanford beats Notre Dame 15-14. Marshall beats Notre Dame like 29-22. Notre Dame beats BYU like 28-22. All these games are fairly low scoring, and Notre Dame's not winning them. What makes you think they're going to beat Clemson? I don't give a shit if it's Saturday night or Sunday morning. I think the best play in this is Clemson +2.5. Their defense shows up. Shipley shows up. This could get high scoring if they get rid of Buglia and they go to the backup quarterback. I'm talking Clemson, because their quarterback just sucks, but the backup is 20 times better, and nobody can understand why they're not going to the backup as the starter. This is like Zappy. Why the fuck aren't you starting Zappy? Why the fuck do you keep starting as Buga, who's got let's say he's got, he's actually got good stats, but he sucks and he's running a lot. maybe that's why, but this other quarterback's so much better. So I don't know, but I don't see Notre Dame pulling this upset off. I mean, they need Montana and Era Parsegian to win this game, and they need green jerseys and red jerseys and yellow pants and a blue helmet. They can go to every color they want to try to win this game. They ain't doing it. Clemson's too strong defensively, and with Shipley, and if they go to the backup, if they need the backup quarterback, and we're getting 2.5 with Clemson in a game that I got Clemson by 10. So I'm only laying 3.5 again. Fuck this over, you can't go over 0. What is that law? A teaser law? So I like the 2.5 with Clemson. I feel they win the game. If they lose, it's going to be by a point, but I don't, they'll go for 2 at the end or something. But otherwise, I think Clemson wins this game like 31-10. I mean, yeah, Notre Dame will be emotional, but you know what? Clemson just beat Wake, and they just beat Florida State on a Saturday night at Florida State, at North Carolina State. Not going to bother Clemson much. They beat Syracuse, I think was home. Or maybe it was at Syracuse. They played a pretty tough schedule, a lot better team. NC State and Wake are better than Notre Dame. And again, just because it's that Saturday night, I don't care. Take Clemson, and you get points. You get a cheap spread. Take Clemson. Now, Wake, we're just talking about laying only 3.5 over under 54 to NC State, who doesn't have their quarterback. They got the backup quarterback playing. What do you do with this? How bad can Hartman play 2 weeks in a row? 8 turnovers, 5 in the third quarter, led to Louisville killing him. Now, the problem I have is NC State has a better defense than Louisville, but they don't have their quarterback. So I think they're going to run the ball, and they got a strong defense, and they'll put pressure on them. Wake beat Clemson, or got 50 on Clemson, who's got a better defense than Louisville. NC State's right up there. Wake's it over. They don't have a great defense, but NC State doesn't have a quarterback, so that won't really matter. I'm kind of torn on this game. I can't bet it over because I can't see NC State scoring a lot. I don't know what to do with Wake. Are they really that pissed off? And then can they do something about the 8 turnovers? I guarantee you Hartman has a good game if he has time. NC State will blitz him a lot because they have a good defense. So I don't know. I'm a little bit scared to take Wake, although I do like that they'll be pissed after last week, and Hartman will personally light it up. But again, if I go to my basic principles of betting, I want a quarterback against a weak defense, not a strong defense. And I got a strong defense in NC State here. So I really don't want to fuck with this defense with Hartman. I'd much rather fuck with Colorado State's defense with Hartman, or Hawaii's defense with Hartman. So I got to be very careful not to get caught again. And I got so many better plays. This is how you look at it. So you line up all your plays, and then you go, well, wait, I'd rather take I'd rather go with Miami as a home dog than fuck with Wake Forest as a road favorite against a strong defensive team. Or I'd rather take Kansas State over. It's a better play. So I'm trying to get my best plays, and then I'm trying to throw out my losers, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm scared of Wake against this defense. Even though they had 8 turnovers last week, are they going to have 8 again this week? I doubt it, and I think Hartman is pissed. But, again, it's a tough defense, and it's what I don't want to fuck with. I want to fuck with the weak defense. So I'm leaving that alone. The spread's dropped to 3.5 again. I can't go over against this defense, and I can't go under against Hartman. So it's a real complex game that there's no way to play it. So if you really, if you think Hartman's going to come back after that performance, and I do think that, maybe you play Wake Forest, but I got too many other good games. San Jose State, Colorado State. Colorado State's a Z team. They're like Mass. They're like New Mexico State. They're just terrible. San Jose State, well, we all hate them from what they did against Fresno State. Laying 24.5, over under of only 45. What a strange numbers. Colorado State, being a Z, has a terrible defense. San Jose State's a B team. A good offense with a good defense. So, honestly, the only way I could play the game is San Jose State minus 24.5, but I am not playing San Jose State until they start playing better. Didn't they lose last week? San Jose State. Where's my week 10? Sure, boy. Here we go. No. Somewhere I got week 10 or week 9. Oh, here it is. San Jose State beats Nevada 35-28, who's basically a Z team also. They can't score. They're a W team. And San Jose State beats them 35-28. So if they can't beat Nevada, I don't really have this huge, they're going to kill Colorado State, who they should kill, but they should have killed Nevada. So until they start playing, I'm not trusting them. So I don't know. I mean, maybe over 39, but I'm avoiding it. USC 21.5, 60.5 to Cal. Looking at Cal, they play Washington 28-21 at home. Then Oregon comes knocking. Oregon beats them 42-24. Now they go to USC, who's upset after losing to Utah. I don't think they played last week. Did they play? USC. Yeah, USC was off. No, they must have played. Maybe they played the week after, but no, Utah. I'm not seeing USC last week. Did they play? Anybody? Oh, yeah, they played Arizona 45-37, which is why that's why I love the Utah Arizona, but only with Rising. But here USC wins by 8 at Arizona, which again in the desert. Cal was what was Cal doing? Cal was losing to Oregon 42-20. I already said that. So with that being said, USC will learn what Oregon did. And Cal played their Washington 28-21. But here we go with USC. And I really like USC here, laying 21 down to 15.5. Cal does not have an offense. They have a good defense, but it's not better than Utah's or UCLA's. The difference is Cal, it's okay, but they held Washington. But then let's look at that. Washington 28 and then 42 by Oregon. What do you think? And the games, this one's at USC, and they can't lose. They've already lost to Utah, 43-42, and then here comes UCLA in 2 weeks. USC is not losing this game. They know Cal's got a fairly good defense, but as I said, it's not better than Utah's, and they put up 42 on Utah. So look for USC to play one of their 50-point games here, and Cal won't keep them. And the last one is Fresno State 27-63 against Hawaii, where we are hearing that Jake Haener is playing, even though on covers he's still questionable. He's still out, but somebody's heard it on ESPN that he is playing. The line moved. So that could be, if he plays, then it's Fresno State laying 21 with Haener. Now, Haener will take time to get comfortable, but if Haener plays, they'll kill Hawaii. Hawaii's terrible. You went over the Kansas-Oklahoma State game. Well, I can do it again for you, Bobby. Kansas, Oklahoma State. Yeah. Kansas is now a 1.5-point favorite, if you can believe that. Over under is 64. Nick said there might be a tornado, but I don't see it, and the spread hasn't moved to it. I like the game over. Kansas, really an explosive team with no defense. And look at the Oklahoma game, look at the Baylor game, look at the Oak State game, or there was 2 or 3. The West Virginia game, they score a lot. The Houston game, every game they score. Kansas gets in the 40s. Oak State put up big numbers, except for last week. I don't see Spencer Sanders injured. I see a receiver, but they can run the ball and throw it. And with Sanders, and after getting embarrassed, to Kansas State 49-0, there's blood in the eyes of Oak State this week. So I look for this. They'll score at will, as will Kansas, because now we know Oak State, they'll give up in the 30s. So I picture this game being 50s to high 30s, maybe Oak State winning. I don't get Kansas State just went favorite, or Kansas. Oak State was a 2.5-point favorite. Now Kansas is a 1.5-point favorite. I don't understand that. I like Oak State also as a dog, but I like the over a lot better because Kansas is part of the 40-40 club, and I don't mean home runs and stolen bases. I mean, I mean it's definitely they'll give up. Oak State will be in the 50s, especially after last week. They're pissed. But Kansas, Bean's fine. I don't care that Daniels is out. I thought it was Daniels why they were scoring. He gets hurt. Bean comes in. No problem. So Bean will light him up. Bean will get you the 40 points. I think Oak State gets a little bit more. If Kansas shuts out Oak State, we're quitting. I don't see that happening. But Kansas State has a good defense, and they were running the ball. Kansas does not run the ball. Kansas has good quarterback, good offense. They throw the ball, and they score a lot of points. So that's what we have this week. So the free game, take Clemson in the 2.5. Take Georgia, lay the 2.5. Georgia's pissed. They're the number one. Now, I've never seen this before where the number one team is an 8.5-point dog. How can that possibly be? They're number one. They're the best team in the country. They should never be underdog. I mean, that's impossible. So, what do you think Georgia's like? Oh, we're not number one. We'll show you we're number one. Georgia's just going to put pressure on Hooker. He's not going to have time. He's going to get sacked 5 times. He can run, but Georgia's all ready for him. They played him last year, beat him 41-17. So I don't see Georgia losing the game. If it was at Tennessee, yes. Tennessee could pull the upset like they did against Alabama. Not at Georgia. That ain't going to happen. Georgia's okay. They let up 20 to Florida and 22 to my Kent team and things like that. But they won the national title, and they're kind of sliding, and they're getting used to the new defensive players. Quarterback, they got the best tight end in the country. Bowers, they got good running, power running. We know their defense is great. They've given up 10 a game. It's funny, you think they're bad defensively, and they still give up 10. I don't play them too heavy, Nick. I've given you a lot better games to play heavy than that one. So just be careful. Don't let them hurt you too bad. But I just see it like, 41-17 again or somewhere in that. I just see Georgia just running it down their throat, keeping the ball away from Hooker. When he has the ball, they're going to be blitzing him. It's going to be like Brady against Denver. He's going to take 2 steps back, and he's going to be on his ass. And Tennessee does not have the defense. So when you really break the game down, when Tennessee's got the ball, Georgia's blitzing him. And he's going to be under duress, and he's going to run around a lot. Georgia's got a secondary, not like Alabama. When Georgia's got the ball, they're going to run it down their throats, keep the ball out of Hooker's hands, and Georgia just runs down the field. Tennessee does not have a great defense, right? Alabama scores 49 on them. Florida puts up, they put up like 33 on them. Yeah, they held LSU, which makes me really leery about LSU against Alabama, is that Tennessee beat them like 40-20 or something like that. They cleaned their clock, LSU. But LSU really, they just have that running quarterback. He's not really that good. So I don't really know what to expect out of that. But that's my point is when Georgia has the ball, Tennessee does not have the defense. And this is not Alabama. So let's look at how we break it down. Alabama's a passing team mostly. They're not a running team. The quarterback's been running, which is very unlike Saban. He always has that power running back to mix it up. That's why they've been good. He doesn't have that running back this year. So basically, Tennessee could play Alabama as a passing team. And Alabama lit them up for 49. So it's not like Tennessee could stop them. Georgia's going to run it down their throat, and they got Bowers, the tight end, and the quarterback runs a little bit. And it's just a much more powerhouse offense. We're going to run it down your throat. We're going to throw it. Not as explosive as Alabama, but it's okay. So they're going to run time off the clock. There's no way in hell. I think if you bet under 72, you'd win this game without a problem. I think it'll be a 60-point game, though. So because it's 66, if you laid 60, you'd be sweating in the game. You might get there, but you'd be sweating. Where if you go under 72, I don't think you're going to be sweating. But because the line's only 8.5, see, everybody thinks Tennessee beat Alabama is like they're the greatest team since sliced bread. And it really pisses me off. Like I listen to this one radio show when I'm going to a club, and they'll rank the top 10 college, and they kind of default the Big 12 and the Pac-10 because they beat each other up. And you're like, dude, those teams are fucking for real. USC, UCLA, and Utah and Oregon, all are playoff teams. They would all, well, because Oregon got killed by Georgia, Utah and UCLA will give Georgia all they want, and probably USC also. They would for sure beat Alabama. They could for sure beat Tennessee. And they could for sure, we saw Utah in the Rose Bowl last week, give Ohio State all they want, right? What was it, like 55-54 or something like that? It was a 100-point game. So we know Utah's quality, and as long as Rising plays, and we know UCLA can beat anybody with Thompson Robinson and the running back who I can't think of. It jumped out of my mind. USC doesn't have the defense, but Oregon certainly could. Then you get to the Big 12, freaking Baylor and Oak State and TCU. And, it's like, because Oak State lost 49, they stink. I don't know. But Baylor and TCU, you can't look at a loss. If Baylor plays TCU and Oak State, somebody's going to win, right? So is the loser a bad team? Fuck no. They're just, how else? You got one winner and one loser. Doesn't mean the team sucks. So all three of those teams, normally Oak State, look at Kansas State playing. So you basically have Texas, TCU, Baylor, Oak State, Kansas State could easily go into the playoffs and win. And they're like, oh, really? You got LSU as your top 10? Really? Well, watch this week. You're not going to have LSU in your top 10 anymore. Watch this week. Georgia will be 1, Tennessee will be back to 10, because then you'll realize, well, Alabama's really not that good, and Georgia really is. And once you see that, then that'll be it. But we already know what's going to happen. We already know the teams because we break it down, defense and offense and everything else that nobody else really does. They just put numbers in a computer and they go, oh, well, this is what happened. Tennessee beat Alabama. They're the best. No, Alabama's not that good. They almost lost to Texas and A&M. Hello. So that's why I like Alabama over not Alabama, because I don't trust them. They've not dominated. Their defense is not that good. I see the running quarterback scoring on them. That's why I like the game over. Yes, Old Mississippi State, but they were strictly passing, where LSU can run a little bit, which is their weak point, a running quarterback. And he can throw, I guess. and he's got Boutte, the best receiver. So I think LSU at home on a Saturday night plays with them, scores enough on them. They're not going to get shut out. Brian Kelly's a good offensive mind. He'll score. They're not going to beat him. And then Georgia definitely shows Tennessee who's boss. And it's like the Michigan game when they played them in the playoff last year. Michigan, who had beat Ohio State, beat Iowa, boom, 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 and here comes Georgia, and you don't do shit against them. We locked it under. We never worried. You've just never seen a pass rush in a defense like this Georgia team. And even though a lot of them got drafted, it doesn't matter because they rotate out 20 guys. So it's not really that problem. Fill the kill. Tennessee may be feeling themselves also. They haven't been number one since Peyton Manning. And we all know what Peyton Manning did at Tennessee. He choked every time he played Florida. Peyton was a choker. There's no question. But, yeah, that's the other thing. They're number one, and they're going to choke. Exactly. Your analysis on their defense is spot on. Yeah. Well, but that's what you look at. See, everybody looks at the good offensive team. They go, oh, Tennessee's going to score, It's not that. It's always the other side. It's what does Tennessee's defense do to Georgia? And you're not stopping it. Now, Georgia put up 26 on Missouri. Missouri has a better defense than Tennessee. But when the shit hit the fan in the Missouri game, what did they do? They got 2 touchdowns. They pounded the ball down the field, got the 2 touchdowns, and won the game. And the only reason it was close is because Georgia kept fumbling the ball. They had 2 or 3 fumbles in it. They fumbled a punt. The receiver fumbled. So that's why they haven't been whitewashing everybody. I will bet anybody anything they want that Georgia does not fumble a punt or fumble the ball in the game. They might get an interception, and that's it. Georgia's not turning the ball over because Georgia is pissed off and they're focused. And this is kind of like backs against the wall. If they lose, Tennessee goes to the SEC championship game. Does Georgia get in with the one loss into the playoff? Well, it depends. We'll see what happens, but Alabama doesn't deserve to be in the playoff. Not the way they look. Again, I'll take TCU over Alabama. I'd bet them even right now. TCU would beat Alabama. Not even a contest. So, yes, Georgia must win at home. Tennessee's kind of like, we beat Alabama. How fired up do you think Tennessee is? Tennessee's shitting in their pants. They go, oh, shit, we got to go against this defense. Now, what was the point I just made about Wake Forest? I says, Hartman doesn't want to go against NC State's defense. I don't want to bet Hartman against that defense. That's a whole don't fuck with that strong defense. Well, what do you think Tennessee's sitting there? You think Hooker feels comfortable going against this Georgia defense, giving up 10 a game? I mean, there's no fucking way. Now, against Kent State, Georgia just laughed, and, I'm sure they weren't up for it. But believe me, the fact they're not number one and they're at home and they're playing this team, look out. I mean, I really don't think it'll be close. People think it'll be like the Alabama game. It won't be. Why are they 8.5-point favorites? Tennessee's the number one team, right? Don, Professor, can you look over my 2 games? I did, Don. So Lou Lafayette. You wanted Troy Lou Lafayette. I said I like the game under. Troy's an under team. Lou Lafayette's kind of a weak offense, but a pretty good defense, at least point-wise. They're both under 20 points on defense. There's some injuries to Troy. I don't like Troy as a road favorite here, but I do like the game under. And then the other one was Texas, Kansas State, and I like Kansas State as the dog, but I really like the game over because the over-under is 54, is 48. That's 28-21 in a Texas-Kansas State game after what Kansas State just did. The key is their quarterback, Howard, is so much better than Martinez, the Nebraska guy who sucked and killed Nebraska for 4 years. He's injured, and they're playing Howard, and Howard's much, much better, which gets back to the better quarterback. So I would play the Texas Kansas State game over or K State as the dog. I think the over, and the Troy game I'd play them under. And you can tease that if that's what you like. Um, if you're money lining it, I would money line Kansas State, but I hate money line. I'd rather take the 8.5 with Kansas State if I'm going to play the game, but I'd rather play the game over. I like Georgia -2. I don't like a -8, but they'll probably cover the 2. They'll probably cover the 8, but it's hard to lay the 8. That's why I do teasers. The odds on us winning the game -8 are maybe 60-40. The odds on us winning the game -2 are about 95-5, 95-5. Georgia wins the game. Maybe they need a field goal to win it, but I don't even think so. I think they win by 20. But if I'm betting and I want to win, I lay 2.5. That's why I do teasers. It not only takes losers to winners, but the odds on you winning the game goes up dramatically. And then we can bet good money on it because I'm only laying 2.5 with Georgia. I got Baylor, Oklahoma laying over 51. I mean, the odds of me winning 51 versus 61 are a joke. I mean, so Oak State, Kansas at 58 is a joke versus 64. Nick, what do you hear on the tornadoes? I don't see it. I went in yesterday, tornadoes in Kansas, tornadoes in Oklahoma. I don't see anything. I don't see a tornado warning. Did you still see that? The lines aren't moving. Oak State, Kansas is 64. If there was a tornado, it'd be 44. And the same thing with Oklahoma, Baylor is actually went from 57 to 61. I'm not seeing if it was a tornado, it wouldn't have went to 61. So let me know what you're seeing on that, but I don't see that. So anyway, the free play, Georgia laying the 2.5 and Clemson getting 2.5 from Notre Dame, which is, I think, a joke. That game should be 10. I don't know where, because Notre Dame beat Syracuse on 2 block punts and 3 interceptions to score their points. If you dig into the game, it's not like Notre Dame's offense came alive. So this ain't Syracuse, and Clemson needs this game to get back to the playoff. They're not losing it. So that's college. So let me quickly run through because I had the technical problems earlier. So let me quickly run through. I got Duke tonight. I got Washington over tonight. I got Army Air Force under. I got North Carolina, Missouri under, Nebraska, Minnesota under, Ohio State. I guess over, Iowa, Purdue. I actually like this game. I think over because it went down to 38 or 36. No, 38. I think it's too low for Purdue. Mary, Wisconsin, I like Mary. A&M, Florida, I like Florida. TCU over Texas Tech. Tulane over Tulsa. Virginia Tech under. UCLA over or UCLA. Utah, we got to see if Rising's playing. This is an over. Baylor, Oklahoma with no tornado. This game's an over. Or Baylor as a dog has been good all year. They've been a dog 3 times. We won all 3 times. And this game will be extremely close. Oklahoma doesn't have a defense, so this game will be definitely close or over. Southern Miss over with Georgia State. Syracuse against Pitt. If Syracuse quarterback plays, I like them. If he doesn't, go under. Oregon over Colorado. I like Oregon. West Virginia, Iowa State. I like Iowa State and the under. Oak State, Kansas. I like Oak State as the dog and over. Michigan State, Illinois. I like the game under, but I don't know what to do with all those suspensions on Michigan State. Penn State, Indiana, I like the game over. New Mexico, Utah State, I like the game under. Washington, Stanford, I like Stanford as the home dog, and I like the game under. Georgia, we like. That's our free play. Take Georgia, lay the 2.5. I don't know I would honestly play the game under versus over at 66. Georgia does not play 70-point games. They're going to run and take time off. There's no, and it's not going to be easy for Tennessee to score touchdowns in this game either. That's the other part I didn't mention. When they get into the 10-yard line, Tennessee's not going to score touchdowns. So definitely, I think this definitely is an under. UCF, Memphis. I like Memphis. UTSA, UAB. Give me a dog. The UAB quarterback is questionable. So I like UTSA either way. Arc Liberty, I like the game over. Navy, Cincy, I like the game under. Since Navy's quarterback's out, they're not an over. Cincinnati plays low-scoring games. South Alabama, Georgia Southern. We like Georgia Southern. We like the game over, actually. Florida International, North Texas. I like North Texas. Troy, Lou Lafayette. I like it under. Texas State, Lumon. I like that game under. Texas, K-State. We like the dog and the game over. Alabama, LSU. I think the only way you can play it is over. I don't think you can trust Alabama by 7.5. And it's Saturday night in Baton Rouge. They'll be emotional. They will score being emotional. They won't be able to stop Alabama. So this definitely goes over. This time, Alabama over. Houston, SMU. I like the dog and the game over. San Diego State against Vegas. I like the game under. BYU, Boise. Probably Boise there. BYU is so bad. Miami and Florida State. I like Van Dyke getting the points. I like the dog in the game with Van Dyke. He is playing. Michigan, Rutgers. I like the game under and Michigan. South Car, Vandy. I like this game under. I can't trust South Car. I can't trust Rattler. Mississippi State, Auburn. Auburn, I think, fired their coach. I think I like Mississippi State here. They're playing a weaker team with a bad offense, a bad defense. This is where my whole theory goes. Mississippi State against against Alabama, Georgia, they're not going to show up. Mississippi, they didn't show up against LSU, but Mississippi State against a weak defense in Auburn will light it up. That's what you're looking for. Good offense against the weak defense. Mississippi State scores and scores and scores. Louisville and James Madison, I like the game under. James Madison, hopefully their quarterback plays. Clemson, Notre Dame, there's the other free pick. Take Clemson plus the 2.5. That's a joke. Wake Forest, NC State. I'd be careful with Hartman. I know he'll be pissed after the turnover game, but I don't want to fuck with NC State's good defense, so leaving this alone. San Jose State, Colorado State. I can't take San Jose State. That's probably the play. Colorado State's a Z team, but Nevada lit up San Jose State last week, so I'm off of this game. Cal USC, I definitely like USC in the game. I don't over under a 60. You could probably play it over because USC will probably get the 54 by themselves. And Hawaii, Fresno State, from what I have heard from our family here, is Haener is playing, which I thought he broke his ankle and was out for the year. But again, I thought Metcalf hurt his knee, was out for the year last week. So Fresno State lay the 21, and that's a joke against a terrible Hawaii team. So with Haener, that Fresno State game becomes even better. So those are the thing. The free pick, Georgia over Tennessee, Clemson over Notre Dame. And I've got, what do I got? 6 locks in here, Nick, something like that. 6 locks plus I don't even have Georgia locked, and I don't have, the other strong plays aren't even locked, which I could. And then tonight I got Duke. I had him with Bowling Green. So that was my early week. Bowling Green, Duke. Bowling Green wins. Duke should kill BC. Duke's a very strong team, very good offense, and BC's terrible. They're a Z. And then I took Washington over. Oregon State's backup isn't too bad. They've been scoring, and Washington, we know, scores 40 a game. This is a 54. All I need is 48. Washington might get us 48 by themselves. Keep in mind, Oregon State's got a good defense, and I'm kind of going against myself where I want to stay away from the quarterback against the good defensive team. But Oregon State did hold they did hold USC 17-13, but I think they played they play Oregon the last game of the year and Washington here. And I don't know if they played. They had to play either Utah or UCLA or somebody. So I'll have to check that one. But I do like Washington because it's such a low over at 48. Oregon State will score 20 because Washington's defense sucks. But Washington will find a way to put up 30, and that this game should be probably into the upper 50s or 60s. 35-27, somewhere in that 62. Again, Washington doesn't have a defense, so it's a perfect over. They score 40, they give up 30. Oregon State will find a way to score, even though Chase Nolan, he's questionable, but I like their backup. So that's what I got today. I got Washington over with Duke, and then off we go tomorrow. Nick, I did add a player or two this morning. Very cleverly, I found a couple of games. So with that said, that's college. I'm going to come back shortly and do pros since I couldn't do college yesterday. I got to get ready for my trip. So got the haircut, had some work stuff to do. So that's why I wasn't on yesterday. I apologize, but we're here today. Here's college. Let's take a little break and then we'll do pros. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Good luck. www.teaserking.com. What do we got? 6 locks, I think, in college. I got so many strong plays here. It's ridiculous. This is going to be a huge college week. I know it. I played about 4 10-team teasers that I expect to win. And I don't have that San Jose State that killed us or the other game that killed us last week. Or last week wasn't close, but the last 2 weeks I've been 9-0 with 1 game left, and I'm going to not do 9-0. I'm going to do 10-0 this week. I feel all the 10-team teasers are winning because I'm like, okay, if I don't like the game, I'm not playing it, and it's like, okay, I found my 10. And one thing I did on a couple of them, I sealed them with the Sunday game. So if we hit the 9 and we got 1 game left, it's my lock on Sunday, but I can trap it, and I got all morning to think about it Sunday if we get there. This time I am fucking trapping it. All right. Have a good day, www.teaserking.com, and I will be back shortly with the pros.